What's good, everyone? My name is SpongePete and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to talk about what made Squidward one of the most iconic characters of all time. Now, Squidward, as you know, is an octopus. Yes, he's an octopus. If you don't know that he's octopus, then you're really out of the loop. But anyways, he's an octopus, cranky old octopus that works at the Krusty Krab and works as the cashier. In this show, Squidward is often described as very sarcastic. He's unhappy, miserable, hypocritical at times, rude, stubborn, and just a negative Nancy in a nutshell. And one of the other aspects people recognize Squidward for his artworks, his paintings, his sculptures, and his clarinet playing. Before we continue to break down Squidward as a character, we must analyze Squidward himself. Now, we don't exactly know too much about his childhood, but we do know that his mother and father are around, so there is no necessarily any abandonment issues. Now, the only thing notable in his early life is his rivalry with Squilliam. And, through his early life, we can only presume that mostly his childhood was a bit rough, as he was probably underappreciated and not always welcome among his peers, and which explains partially about why he's so distant and so miserable with talking with others. To this very day, Squidward works at the Krusty Krab, though he is not the perfect employee. Through multiple episodes, we see Squidward sleeping, reading on the job, most of the time, a lot of slacking off, and berates the customers for taking forever. All those problems with cashiers and everything. And in his free time, Squidward spends most of the time creating art, whether he's either painting, drawing, making sculptures, and even playing the clarinet. And this is just one of the main hobbies Squidward does in the meantime for his creative outlet. It's also known that Squidward is more of the intelligent type of characters in the show, as he's a bit more grounded and understands situations a bit more clearly, and is not as naive as the other town folks. And which is, to be fair, most of the town folks are a bit aggressive and pretty stupid at times, and so yeah. Most of the time, Squidward often acts very rude and sarcastic, and pretty much acts very miserable, as if his life is terrible. Though, is for some weird reason, he always ends up working at the Krusty Krab. And there's other aspect of Squidward. He's hypocritical, he's stubborn. As an example, in Bubble Stand episode, despite being in with the bubbles, he is tempted to blow bubbles himself, and then he gets lessons from SpongeBob, and inadvertently he just creates the biggest bubble. In another episode, Just One Bite, Squidward never tried eating Krabby Patty for some reason, even though he'd been working there for years, and he still hasn't tried a Krabby Patty. But anyways, he ends up lying to SpongeBob after his first bite, and he ends up lying it. But instead of admitting that SpongeBob was right about Krabby Patties being good, he doubles down and says, "Oh, I still don't like Krabby Patties." But at the end of the episode, he sneaks into the Krusty Krab and eats dozens of Krabby Patties and blows up. So it just really shows those episodes how Squidward can be very hypocritical and at times in a denial. Furthermore, Squidward also lies about his appearances and his occupation and everything, just to tell others that he is a bit more upper class than them. And in episodes such as Band Geeks and Squilliam Returns, he lies to Squilliam twice in those episodes about having a band and having a 5-star restaurant, just to prove that he is better than him, even though Squidward works as a cashier and doesn't really have that much things, and when it comes to monetary value. Squidward heavily retaliates when people criticize his art and music. There's several episodes where everybody and every other person just hates his music, and besides SpongeBob and Patrick, of course. So instead of taking the criticism and the remarks from other people critically to make his art better, he often doesn't take it kindly and just ignores people's advice and everything like that. In general, Squidward feels like he is not appreciated, or feels like no one understands him, as nobody appreciates his artwork or his music, and he really craves the attention and the idea of becoming famous and being recognized. And through that, we can only assume that back in his childhood or something like that, as he was growing up, he he feels underprivileged or never been recognized throughout his life. So it just really explains further why Squidward often blames society for making him feel this way, and why he sees himself as a failure. And despite the negative attitude and demeanor, we still love Squidward. So why is that? And in my opinion, one of the main reasons why, and what I've seen online, why people love Squidward is because of his relatability. Oftentimes, when people compare SpongeBob and Squidward, it's often seen as SpongeBob being the gullible kid we once were, and now Squidward is the transition of being an adult, always being cranky and so bitter around the world. And in my opinion, it's really true, because Squidward, he doesn't really enjoy most things in life. He hates his job, everybody being critical against his like artwork and pieces like that, and he just have a lot of responsibilities. He just doesn't really care most of the things in the world, despite except for his artworks and his passions and everything like that. And it's just really relatable, as as an adult nowadays, you have more responsibilities like jobs, payments, and you have to worry about your health. Those things you would usually think about as an adult, but as a kid, you would never think about those things. You're just having a good time, just doing what you'd like to do, and you're just mostly happy for the most part. Like Squidward, as an adult, we often complain about the things about our jobs and money issues and everything like that. Even around the people like around us, we often complain about them or make snarky remarks or be having sarcastic. And because life is just so stressful, it just comes out natural. And I think that's just one of the more appealing parts of Squidward, is because he's the amalgamation of how being an adult is, and how relatable, and how it's just life is just stressful and you just want to do nothing, and sometimes we get lazy, just like Squidward, and how you just have to slacks off, and it's just like, oh, that's me. That's my mood right now.
And what could be better than serving up smiles?
Being dead or anything else.
Squidward is essentially a vessel for the adults in the show, as we have to go through things such as facing annoying customers, making sarcastic remarks, being passive aggressive, dealing with annoying people, being criticized for our work. And it's just perfect. The perfect representation of how stressful of an adult can be. And like Squidward, we just all want to relax. You just want to do our hobbies, get things done, and then get by. For Squidward, playing the clarinet and painting is a way to de-stress. And for me, it's making these videos, creating art, or spending time with my friends. We all have our hobbies and passions to distress ourselves. And for us, creating art and everything, getting criticized, and it really hurts. It's a harsh reality we have to go through. And obviously there are times that I would make mistakes, and sometimes I just didn't want to listen, just like Squidward. And it's just a hard pill to swallow, to be honest. This notion of denial doesn't have to be applied just to art. It's just the things, we do in general. And, getting criticized by our own peers, we get really defensive, just like Squidward. And it just really reminds us how, well, for me, how sometimes I can be a failure, and sometimes I have doubts of myself that I can't be competent enough to do some things, and that's why I act a bit more defensive and a bit passive aggressive, because it's more of like a defense mechanism for me, and maybe for you as well. And I think that's just one of the tragedies of Squidward, is he often acts this way as for self-defense, as Squidward doesn't really know how to process his feelings in a healthy manner, and he often bottles up and then often yells at SpongeBob and his other friends in the show. And it just really reminds me of those times where I would bottle up my emotions, and then I would act unintentionally negatively towards my own family or friends, and I would really feel bad about it, and I would try to make it a bit better for myself, to explain my feelings and vent out my frustrations in life. And just like Squidward, we all struggle to find that place where we want to be welcomed and to be accepted in our community. And for Squidward, it's a bit more difficult, as nobody really likes his art or his music, and so that oftentimes he would criticize other members of society as lesser than him, even though some of his stuff isn't really too amazing. And he often acts like a jerk, essentially.
Once in a while, I need to breathe in and not smell grease. Or the stench of my miserably failed life.
And I'm really glad the writers chose to write Squidward this way, is because it just feels real about his emotions and frustrations on life. And it's just really relatable, as we all have gone through something like that, where we would just want to complain or just we want to berate others, for our shortcomings. And not all of us indulge in those moments, but at times, we're really down in the dumps, and we have no choice but to feel that way and feel like the world has mistreated all of us, and why can't we be accepted into our communities and our families and all that stuff. And it just makes Squidward a more compelling and relatable character. Although Squidward is mostly a negative, miserable character, I think there is some aspects of him that we can learn from him, as a character. Now, obviously, of course, embracing the attitude and the bitterness of Squidward's worldview isn't exactly the answer, and more we should focus on the positives in this section of the video. And I just want to highlight Squidward's personality, as although he's a foil to SpongeBob's character, there are redeeming moments in the earlier seasons of Squidward showing kindness to SpongeBob. For example, we have episodes such as Pizza Delivery and Dying for Pie. Squidward stands up for SpongeBob despite him getting him lost for delivering the pizza. And after the customer ridiculed him for not having his drink, Squidward brings the pizza back to the customer and threw it right back at his face. And it's just really satisfying for his character. And in Dying for Pie, even though it was his fault that he believed that he gave SpongeBob the explosive bomb pie, he spends essentially the whole day with him doing his favorite things with SpongeBob. And even though by the end he didn't really eat the pie, it just really shows how Squidward, when he makes mistakes, he still tries to make things better or mend those his mistakes with the people he has harmed, especially towards SpongeBob. And obviously, to be fair, there are moments where he exceptionally becomes a jerk, such as in episodes Christmas Who and April Fools. In April's Fools, Squidward basically pulls a massive elaborate prank on SpongeBob, but it made SpongeBob hurt his feelings. And then throughout the later half of the episode, Squidward essentially tries to apologize, even though he can't fathom of apologizing to SpongeBob.
All right, I'm sorry, I admit it, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. In fact, SpongeBob, I like you. I like living next door. I like hearing your foghorn alarm in the morning and your high-pitched giggling at night. I also like Gary, Patrick, Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and all the other people I'm forced to be in contact with.
But it just really shows that despite his mistakes, he still wants to apologize, even for Christmas Who. Even though he didn't believe in Christmas, he still feels bad for SpongeBob for being in a bad mood, so he becomes Santa Claus. And then through his kindness through SpongeBob, he gives most of his stuff away to the citizens of Bikini Bottom, and having that spirit of Christmas have within themselves. And Santa Claus thanks Squidward. And it just really shows that SpongeBob matters so much to Squidward, and Squidward matters so much for SpongeBob. Through SpongeBob, the writers are allowed to explore more Squidward's vulnerability, as he isn't just the one-note, miserable, always cranky character, but more like he's very insecure about his feelings, and he doesn't immediately show it as much as SpongeBob. And those moments of showing kindness really add so much more layers to Squidward as a character, and I love that. Without those moments of Squidward being vulnerable and being kind to SpongeBob, Squidward could have been just that one miserable character that he's just always cranky. But it just really shows that Squidward has multiple layers within himself. All in all, Squidward is a really great character, as we can mostly relate to him with his issues of anger, frustration, ego, and all the things. And because he's such a flawed character, and ourselves being flawed, we relate to Squidward the most. And I think that's just one of the main aspects why Squidward is so memorable and such a great character. And while I was looking through clips for this video for Squidward, it really just shows in the comments, really just shows that how much people relate to Squidward and how much we adore him as a character. And I'll show you some examples right now. It just shows that the writers had a great idea of how to write Squidward, as they're the embodiment of our feelings of being an adult and how stressful it is. And yeah, that's all I have to say about Squidward. Squidward is an amazing character. He is a great character to relate to, and he's just very entertaining to watch, and has a great dynamic with SpongeBob. Let me know why you love Squidward and why he's your favorite character, or let me know what other characters I should analyze. And yeah, see you then.